How did you two become the poster children for this movement?
Gosh. For me, I was reached out to just because of my affiliation with Take Back Eureka and being out in the public eye and educating people on local politics and the City of Eureka stuff. So,
for me, I was involved with a few things with the city, and as far as parking and that type of stuff. And I think when Citizens for Better Eureka formed, they asked me to be part of that, and I did. And then some people that were involved with that thought that I might be a good person to be a spokesperson for this as well. And once we took a look at it and kind of decided that, hey, it was worth the risk of, public humiliation, it was strong enough position for me that it was something I wanted to do.
Did a lot of thought go into weighing out the risk for, especially being the public face of this, but joining the movement? Were you guys kind of aware of how much backlash might come your way?
I did a lot of hard thought on that. Talked with my business partner about possible ramifications, positives and negatives of this thing on both sides. But when it came down to it, it was what legacy do I want to leave my kids here? What do I want Eureka to look like in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years? How's it going to affect my businesses here? And at the end, it was a no-brainer for me, and especially after we did the research.
Absolutely. I agree with that 100%. Mm-hmm. That's a lot of why I started getting involved in the community to begin with, is just what I was seeing happening out there. I knew I couldn't be the only one feeling this way. And so I, started Take Back Eureka, but this just kind of built on top of that. It was just like a no-brainer. It's like, I don't want to leave this community. I want more for us than what's being laid out there right now, and our future is at stake.
Be the change you want to see, right?
Correct, yeah.
Or the direction that we're headed more.
Yeah, more, yeah.
So take me back to the beginning. Were you two approached to be members in Citizens for Better Eureka? Were you instrumental in founding it? How did that take place?
I was asked if I wanted to.
I was asked.
So it was already in place when you guys were presented?
It was in the very early stages, I would say, for me.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Was the initiative taking place at that point, or was just Citizens for Better Eureka?
No.
The initiative came sometime after that, months, I would say. So,
what was the plan when the group first formed? Just to raise awareness?
Raise awareness, yeah. Just to make sure that, more than anything, I think that there was enough people that were of the same mind, like-minded people. Who's this affecting? What are your thoughts and feelings on it? How do we want to get organized and present our thoughts and feelings to the public?
And so for people that don't know, Citizens for Better Eureka was founded on the idea of what?
Well, it's a pretty wide range, honestly, in my opinion. They're basically put together. I think it's about 60 business people and people with an interest in the downtown area, or Eureka as a whole, for that matter, that just are put together as one voice, basically, that says, "Hey, these are what we believe will make the city better." These are thoughts, visions, actions that you can take, and let's make our voice heard.
And some of it comes from their experiences, their own personal experiences. If they're a business owner, like what they've experienced and what they want to see improved or better in their area, downtown and Old Town area.
Yeah, and I think the organization of it really became from frustration, not being heard. Going to city council meeting after city council meeting, writing letters, emails, what have you, and just no response, or it just glossed over, and just the powers to be not pretending that voice doesn't exist. Just they want their agenda promoted, and anything we can do to silence anything else, we're not going to really take any action on it. So we felt we had to get a little organized to be heard.
What specifically did you guys want to be heard on? What were your driving factors?
Well, for this, it's really kind of ended up at the initiative, honestly. We're very strongly opposed to eating up all of the downtown parking. We believe we need parking to have a vitality, a vital, a downtown with a business community that has some vitality to it. We're all for housing downtown, but we just want a better plan than what we've got. We think we need parking along with the housing to maintain tourism, business, retail, I have two businesses down there, a restaurant and a financial planning firm. They both need parking. I can't see a world where my 85-year-old client's going to walk blocks and blocks and blocks in the rain to come in and sign a document. So, we need this, the structure. And we also believe that, there's a reason that there's a business district and a residential district. And yes, they can be blended, but we still need to have an emphasis on a business district to have those services kind of concentrated in one area, whether it's, your CPA, your doctor, financial planner. You also want some restaurants, some coffee shops, some other retail in there, but all of these things need parking. So we need to figure that out. And we've come up with a plan we think will work for everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
What is the plan?
Well, it's it's the initiative basically. We would like to maintain the parking that we have. And any development that we put in there, we would like to have a plan for the parking for those units as well. And to facilitate that, we'd like to put an overlay on the downtown area and also rezone the Jacobs property to make that more desirable for development. These things are starting to progress along. And under our plan, we'll end up with more houses and retain the parking and retain the vitality of the downtown. So really, it comes down to let's build a better plan. The city is, in a tough spot. They've got this, regional housing needs assessment that needs to be fulfilled. I think it's 952 homes that are units that they need built, from low, very low to low, mid, and on up. Their hands are somewhat tied on the fact that we've got a very small downtown business district, or city limits. We've got a larger city than we have city limits. And all of this housing has to go inside the city limits. It can't even be, the other side of the street, so to speak. So they're in a tough spot. They're going to take the path of least resistance to get there. That's really what they did. I think there's also some people who really want to promote the 15-minute city idea, which, is what it is, but it also, could be a huge detriment to what we envision Eureka to be. In particular, I think the lot that, there's two lots that I think really come into play here when you think about, what's Eureka going to be. And that's where the lot behind Las Coast Brewery and then the lot between Dick Taylor's Chocolates and Jack's Seafood.
Mm-hmm.
To me, those are the two most important lots in this initiative. And the fact that, they want to take up that lot behind Las Coast Brewery, that's the most parked on lot in Eureka. If you do away with that and then, turn it into a regional transit hub, where are those people who are going to come there to take the bus going to park? It's already starting to get built out. I've moved twice to get more parking downtown. And then you look at that lot, the huge one down there that everybody kind of overflow parks in now. To me, that's the crown jewel of Eureka. That, what I envision there is, maybe some shops along the ground floor, some nicer apartments and condos along the top. And then on the backside, on the bay side, that should be public use, whether it's, a big strip with some, park type stuff in it for the kids, maybe, a stage area or something that's right on the waterfront that, can be used for tourism. To me, that's the crown jewel. And, under what they want to do now, that's going to be low and very low income housing. I just don't think it fits the area. Where are those kids going to play? How are you going to get them to school all the way across town? It's not, very environmentally friendly to be, ping ponging all the way across town all day long when we have places we can develop right next to the schools, right next to shopping,
right
on the bus line, near restaurants. To me, there's a better plan.
Yeah.
So are you guys opposed to building on the parking lots or just the replacement of parking? That if they were to implement a building structure that had ground level parking that could provide for the spots that are being replaced and for residents, would you guys be okay with that?
Absolutely. We're pro parking, and I think, or pro housing. I think that's a big, misunderstanding is everybody thinks we don't want housing. We want more housing. And, under our proposal, we're going to get 3 times the numbers of what the city's currently proposing for housing. And, absolutely, there should be housing built downtown, but we need to park down there. So
it's interesting that there's so much pushback on that idea. That we can build these structures, we can implement more housing, and we don't need to supplement any parking. And I get the push from the state to just build housing at any cost. I understand the pressure that's on the city. But it feels like that's going to bite us in the ass here in 5 or 10 years.
That's what I'm worried about is the future. So in 10, 20 years from now, where is that going to put us,
I can give you the numbers.
Do you have them?
I have the numbers. Right now in Old Town, there's about 552 off-street parking spots. If they go along with and develop the 9 of the 12 lots that they're proposing right now, that's going to eliminate just between the Earth parking lot and the Dishgamu Land Trust project. That's 218 spots out of the 552 they're going to eliminate. That's going to bring us down to 334. We've been doing a lot of studies. We've got another study we're doing right now. And we think right now about 414 spots a day are being utilized. So we're going to go from 552 to 334. So that's going to give us about, about an 80 spot deficit right now if they just build those two. There's also a lot of other development that's going on. And, they're not talking about what they're going to do with these people who are moving into the area. And so if you figure that, there's about 180 units between what's going on down there, between those two projects, Will Adams got a couple of projects. And, those are great projects as well, as long as we leave the parking that is already down there alone. But you start adding this up and there's about 186 units that are going to be, between these projects. So let's just say it's one car per unit. And we know it's going to be more than that. Then you add 80 to 186. That's going to leave us about 266 negative parking spots in the next few years. So it feels good now. Everybody's like, there's not a parking problem downtown. There isn't right now, but when there's 266 spots,
once
you
they're
can't
gone,
find,
they're gone.
And this is a train you can't turn around.
Yeah.
Once this ship sets sail, it's gone. So, we're going to be right there in a very short period of time if these projects go through that you're not going to be able to park downtown.
These numbers that you have, are they estimations that you guys have come up with, or is this from an actual study that has been in place?
This is purely counting the spots. We basically...
So not in terms of actual utilization of the spots?
Well, the utilization was a study we did at 414 that we came up with. And that was drone studies, pictures. And we're doing another one right now, more in depth, and that we should have that ready pretty quick. And
there was a study that the city did, I believe, on parking, and they had a very different estimation of parking utilization. It was 50 to 60% at peak hours.
Yeah. Well, that was done during the height of COVID, number one. And number two, part of what they're utilizing on that is the parking lot in front of the Adorni Center. So they expect you to park at the Adorni Center and walk to 511. That's their thought process there on utilization, or Chapala's or wherever. So they're saying, all right, let's count all those spots in front of the Adorni. That's so far out of the way, it's not realistic. So, there's a lot of stuff in that study that the city did that is just, I'm going to say it is bullshit. I
wasn't aware that they did that during COVID.
Yeah, it was during the height of COVID.
It's like 2021.
I think it was late 2020 or 20.
I have the date on it, actually.
Yeah, that's pertinent information.
Yeah.
Yeah, mine doesn't say the date.
Yeah, I didn't come across any dates when I was looking that over.
I mean, I could probably find it, but...
It was...
which would make a difference because peak COVID, people aren't
traveling.
No one's going
March, there's no events.
I believe it was March of 21 that they did the study.
Yeah, early 21.
Early peak COVID.
Yep. So certainly not where we're at now. And, I've just moved from 5th Street to 2nd Street 2 years ago. And in the last 6 months, the parking problem has increased dramatically. I don't know what's drawing it right now, but I can't park in front of my building hardly ever at the corner of 2nd and I right now. If I'm not the first one there in the morning, I'm parking a block away. And a year ago, I parked right in front of it every day. So parking problem is intensifying, not getting better.
Have you guys brought that up to the city council? And tried to get them to acknowledge maybe that study's not quite accurate given the time that it was implemented?
We get stonewalled.
Yeah, it's been brought up before.
Many times. They won't
just
acknowledge.
Falls on deaf ears.
Yeah.
Yep. So
they pretty much just tune you out.
And that's why we have the initiative. We're just tired of, falling on deaf ears 100% of the time. Let's let the voters decide.
Yeah, but the initiative has a lot of interesting branding attached to it. To say that you guys are pro-housing, I mean, there are a number of direct quotes where people say, you guys can't be pro-parking and pro-housing. You are either one or the other.
If we're going to provide triple the housing units and retain the parking, yes, we can be. So, I mean, I don't see why you can't be.
I don't see why either. I don't understand the argument myself because you should be able to have both. I don't see how you could be anti one thing and only pro another. Like, you can be both. There's two things can be happening at the same time. Two things can be right. It's just a certain mindset that people don't want to break free from because they have their minds made up.
Well, and for a while it was mandated that if you were going to build housing, you had to provide some parking.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And it's only recently, probably because of COVID, that they kind of axed that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because of COVID.
Yeah, I think it started a little actually before COVID.
Yeah.
More
but
so
they
the housing
snuck it
crunch.
in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And as they got more desperate for needing more housing throughout California, the state started implementing and changing laws and zoning and things.
And there's a lot of factors in play there. We've become a mecca, California, and in particular Humboldt County, for homeless. I mean, you've got people moving from all over the nation to California to get our benefits. That's not helping the problem. I've always been of the mind we should all take care of our own. We shouldn't be taking care of everybody else's as well. It is what it is. Just like everybody else, I want to see everybody be successful. I want to see everybody housed, but I also think that other communities have done a pretty good job of running their homeless out of town, and they've got to go somewhere. We're a likely candidate for that. I think that started really strongly in about 2016 when the RENA stuff started. They started coming out, and I think the cities really kind of ignored this for 2 or 3 or 4 years until they realized, hey, we've got this deadline coming up. We've got to come up with a regional housing needs plan and get it approved by the state. Then they're in a mad panic. This is the easiest plan that they could come up with, and also get a bunch of grant dollars coming in at the same time, which, sometimes money now is not the best long-term plan. So I don't believe we should take every grant that comes along. We should really assess, does this fit our community? Does it fit what we want to do long-term with our community? Not just take every dollar. No.
Well, I don't think anyone would argue that we need more housing in Eureka, but the idea that housing should come at the expense of parking, especially downtown, is a bit of a stretch. Because you're bringing an influx of people in, and it's not like public transportation's that great or walkability is that great. So people are going to be driving. Yeah. They're going to have cars. Where are they going to park the cars?
83% of the people who come to downtown drive there.
Yeah.
So, they got to park somewhere or they're not coming. I also own the AA Steakhouse, and we here about a year ago, our landlord, who's right next to us, needed to put in a solar system. So he blocked off our parking lot for 1 week so the crane truck could get in there and lift all the solar panels and all the equipment onto his roof. That little parking lot in the back, and that's probably not everybody who comes to us, and it's got, I think, 13 spots there. It cut our business in a third for a week. If people can't park right there, they just go someplace else. I mean, to me, that just painted the picture right there. The second that truck was gone, our numbers went right back to normal. So if you don't have parking and closely, it's a mindset. People they're going to move on. They'll go someplace where they can park next door and walk in, especially if it's raining. So
yeah, I mean, if you have young kids and you have to, try to get like 2 or 3 kids out, and you got, strollers and all the gadgets, and you're not going to walk 5 blocks. I'm sorry. You're going to try to get the closest spot to make it easier on you. And so, like he said, if you have to circle around and you're 5 blocks away, you're just going to go somewhere else, especially if it's something for like food or, entertainment. You're not
or anything you can order online.
Yeah. Now you can get food,
which is most things.
Yeah. Everybody's doing that. So
why go out to eat if there's no parking? You might as well just DoorDash it.
Yeah, It'll be there when you get home and pull right in.
So many people do that now. So
is that a big concern for you guys? Is what it's going to do towards people coming to your businesses?
Absolutely. Huge concern. So, I also own a financial planning firm. I kind of mentioned before, I can't imagine, one of my elderly clients, say 85 years of age, it's pouring down rain. They have to come in and sign some documents. Not all of these people, not all these documents can be e-signed, nor do all of these people e-sign. So we still have, quite a few people coming in on a daily basis. And if they have to walk 5 blocks in the rain, it really, complicates things for them and us. It really slows down the volume of our business and our profitability. So
I know my husband does construction, and he's done a few jobs down in the Old Town, downtown area, and he will not park blocks away because things are stolen, and they've had to worry about, people in the back of the truck or trailer or whatnot. So, even stuff like that, if there's not access for people to either double park or park in a close by vicinity, it prevents people from wanting to work in those areas because it's just really difficult, and they're not going to risk losing, all of their supplies and deal with all of the headache. Mm-hmm. So there's a lot of factors in play.
Well, and we do have a very strong homeless population down there. And so the idea that you're going to get a large segment of the population to just walk around where there is crime and they don't necessarily feel safe, again, feels like a stretch. You would think you would want to address that first and maybe try to clean up the area a little bit if you were trying to implement something like this.
Mm-hmm. Well, I guess that's the other end of this coin of, do we cater to more and more homeless, and particularly not our homeless coming here, or do we try and build an environment that has an economy, whatever that is, higher wage paying jobs? Let's raise our median income. I'd love to see the assets that we're putting into this be put into something that would promote more commerce in our town. I think that helps solve the problem as well. It also helps solve the cost of these units. You look at, what they're proposing to build on these units, the one at 5th and D and the one at Earth Center, the per unit cost is like $760,000 on one and $706,000 on the other. That's 1 and 2 bedroom apartments for $700,000. We're paying for that out of our tax dollars, and then we're going to supplement the rent on it out of our tax dollars. This is just a domino effect here. If people don't think that we're going to have to pay more taxes to pay for all this, they better rethink it. It's coming.
They're going to get money somehow, and that's the number one way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, you talk about the parking downtown, being negative 266 with just these two projects. That doesn't include more units being built down there. There was also a ruling or a bill that went through on January 1st that's going to eliminate the first 15 feet of parking on all right-hand inside intersections. I don't know if you guys have read about this. But you start looking at downtown, just how many parking spots that is, and it's got to be 60 or 70 more spots. So, this number can balloon to 400 negative very easily. People don't realize how many people are actually downtown every day, and it's a pretty significant amount.
Well, there's almost a two-front attack going on where you have people wanting to create more walkable cities, which means eliminating parking to incentivize people not driving down there, and then the influx of housing. So where it's almost a give and take, but there's no practicality in that. We don't have a walkable city down there. Necessarily, you could walk down through a couple blocks, but you need the parking there because most people don't live there. So if you want to attract people to downtown, you could just ship them in and have them live there. They're still going to be driving around, or you have people who are outside of the city limits driving in which case they're going to need some parking.
Well, and that works great in San Diego. 300 days of sunshine a year, great mass transit.
We have a lot of rain here.
We have a lot of rain here. And to me, the parking lots are an extension of the roadway. Those are for the cars that are no longer moving. You can't have roadways and not have non-moving environments for the roadways. That's just part of the transit system. You start eliminating that. And so what's that mean? People are going to start stopping in the middle of the street instead of going into a parking lot to stop. It really creates congestion. And this is by design. You look at knocking H&I down to 2 lanes. That's going to create congestion. It's going to make you frustrated. Adding these bike lanes, taking away the front end side. Everything they're doing is to create, to dissuade you from driving. That's not Humboldt County. People live here for a reason. They want the freedom. They live rurally. They come into town to do their business. They want to go back out. They're going to have a way to do that. And to think that they're going to maybe come in from Fortuna and stop at Elk River Overpass and get on a bus to come into downtown.
Yeah, not happening.
I wouldn't want to live here anymore. Just wouldn't want to do it. So, the whole reason we live here is for this lifestyle, and to have, a few people come in from out of the area. And, most of the people I see behind this aren't long-term Humboldt County residents. They're just coming in wanting to impress their values on people who already have a value system that they love. I'm not saying we don't need housing, because we do. But, let's open up some of these other properties. Let's take that need away for such condensed housing downtown, get all of the housing we need, put it in a better place with better options for these people, and get everything we need. Jacobs alone could fulfill the arena housing needs. So it's a very, very viable option. It's already on its way to doing it.
Why is there such a push from the city to utilize these parking lots and not look at those other avenues?
Number one, I think they want to maintain control. Number two, I think they love the grant money. I mean, everybody wants
that's what I
to
was going to say.
do everything they can while they're in charge. I mean, you look at the tenure of a city manager, and it's not very long. It's 2 or 3 years. Miles has already been here longer than that. So, they want to get everything they can get done while they're in charge. Same with the city council. And you look at them, talking about these grants coming in for what, 28.1 million or something for this grant. The project they're talking about putting that towards a $63 million project, and only about 10 or 12 million of that grant money is going towards that project. So they're really misleading the public on, what those grant dollars are going to be used for. I mean, we're 20, 30, $40 million short on that project. Once again, that's going to come back to the tax basis. You're going to pay more taxes to get this built. So,
it's not even fully funded.
Yeah.
They make it seem like it's all a go, but they don't have all the funding for it. So
that seems to be a big point of contention because people that are affiliated with the city are saying that they are fully funded or pretty close to fully funded.
Their statement is we're working on that funding right now.
Yeah.
Well, you're
That's
working
what we've
on
been
it.
told.
You don't have it.
Working on it.
Yeah,
is
working
not the
on
same
it is not
thing.
having it.
I mean, here it is.
Yeah.
But they seem pretty confident that they're close, if not almost there.
They're not close. They're not almost there. I mean, they're working on it, sure. But show me the money. They don't have it. So
what about the Dishgamu property where they can get a lot of funding from the tribes through that?
they're not funded yet either. So I have faith that they'll get the money, but it's not there yet.
Yeah.
So.
And you guys were expecting a lot of that to come from the tax base.
It's going to have to.
I don't know
where else would it come from? So, there's a lot of mistruths going out and a lot of spin on that. And all I say is, do your research. Look at, where is the money? Show me the source of where the money's coming from. They can account for about maybe a quarter of it at this point. So, they're a long ways off. And that's also why we dropped a couple of our lawsuits, because it wasn't worth our time to continue on with those lawsuits between now and November, because we know they're not going to fund it between now and November. So why waste our time, efforts, and money on those lawsuits that, we're going to have our initiative on the ballot on November 5th. Why should we waste money between now and November 5th for something they can't accomplish between now and November 5th?
So you guys originally had 5 lawsuits.
Mm-hmm.
You dropped one in regards to pushing for the March ballot.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are on the November ballot now. Do you still have the other 4 open?
There was one that had a ruling on it last week that we're appealing, that had a ruling with no substance from the judge, basically. He ruled on it but didn't give any cite any case or anything like that. He's got, I think, 60 or 90 days to cite his case, but it's pretty rare for a judge to make a ruling without any case citings. And the law on this one's very clear. We feel very confident we'll prevail on that one because there's just no other options. The law is clear. It's very strange that we got the ruling that we did, but we'll push forward on that one. There's still, I believe, 4 lawsuits we have going with the city right now, and we'll continue on with those. And ultimately, we're just looking for the people of Eureka to decide what happens with downtown Eureka. We just don't want a small group or the city council to push an agenda down the throat of the people without them having a say in it. And at the end of the day, if this isn't what the people want, that's not what the people want, but we don't feel that that's what the case is going to be.
Yeah.
And those other 4 lawsuits, those are standing on the California Environmental Quality Act?
CEQA,
yeah.
CEQA?
Mm-hmm.
How are you guys feeling about those? Do you feel like you have a solid footing with that? The argument was that the city didn't do enough due diligence in regards to what the impact on parking would be.
They did 0. So they just basically waived CEQA altogether and said, we don't need to do any environmental impact reports on this.
And their argument is because it's infill projects
Right.
on surplus land.
Well, I don't know that they necessarily stated their argument. They just knew that there was a loophole in the law. They feel that there's a loophole in the law that they just don't have to do it and they can push their agenda forward. We feel differently. We feel that CEQA is important, that not only should it be environmental, financial, all impacts should be considered on this. And we feel that that is not done. It's been just railroaded down everybody's throat. And we feel that should be done, and that the findings from that CEQA report should be public.
Is that a valid loophole, though, that they can use? The infill on surplus land? Is that?
We don't feel it is.
We don't feel it is,
But they do.
They do.
I don't know if they actually believe it or not, but they're going forward with it. So we'll see see how it goes.
Yeah. It seems like it's hard to say anymore. after this last ruling, it's like, I'm like, okay, well, just keep pushing forward, you know?
So we'll keep fighting it. So, at the end, we'll see what happens on November 5th. And that's really the important thing.
And the last ruling that the judge had acted on, that was in regards to the ballot initiative going in March.
No, it was
No.
that one was the Wiyot tribe came in and said they have a vested interest in the CEQA lawsuit on one of the properties we had the CEQA lawsuit on. It was very clear in the in previous rulings that they do not. Because some of the tribal rulings that had happened prior. The judge found on the side of the Wiyot at this point, but with no substantiation of how he found that ruling. So we're waiting for the ruling to come through so we can appeal that.
I get the impression from talking with you guys that you feel like a lot of this has just been railroaded through by the city.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah, totally.
But this has been an ongoing process, right? For a few years now?
For a couple of years. They really should have started doing all this in 16, but they waited till 19 and then kind of crammed it through. And by 21, we had 2 years of not being listened to. And that's when we started our initiatives.
Yeah, during COVID, a lot of things were happening and, people weren't aware and weren't going to meetings and paying attention because everything was in chaos. So, once we started looking out and going, oh boy, that's when we kind of were like, okay, we got to do something.
Well, and there was some other stuff that started with the planning department in 2016, going, with the current planning commission that they okayed a lot of this stuff with the caveat that these things would happen and, ground level parking and so on.
Mixed rate housing.
Yeah. And that it would be fair across the board. Somehow there was a change there. And there was actually a couple of planners who left over this argument, Jeff Reagan being one of them. And it was pretty contentious at the time. But during COVID, all of those things that the Planning Commission put in as caveats kind of got pushed aside. And they just went with their own agenda, even though this was stipulated that this was how this was going to go. And I find it very interesting, actually, that, they were very pro ground level parking. And the city even came out and said, hey, with that building that's going to go in next to City Hall, we're going to have ground level parking there. But then they come out and say, oh, it's just too expensive. It doesn't work anywhere. However, this is what Oakland's doing, what LA's doing, Sacramento. You go down and that's
San Jose, everywhere.
All of these projects have ground level parking in them. So obviously the math works. And you look at, a $65 million project. Yeah, it's going to add a couple million to it. So it's a $67 million project. So you're going from $740,000 a unit to $750,000 a unit. It's still ridiculous. But this is what everybody else is doing. So to hear the cry, oh, it just doesn't work. We're in an earthquake zone. Well,
they want it for their city lot.
Yeah,
they want to preserve their parking and build housing above it, but not for anybody else.
Right. So it's do as I say, not as I do.
Yeah.
So
well, the argument that I've heard is that it would then price people out of that low income price point. You wouldn't be able to have.
They're already so far out of the low income price point. I mean, literally $740,000 a unit versus maybe $750,000 a unit. That math is never going to work. I do numbers for a living. That math does not work. So I don't know how you rent out a $750,000 unit for $1,200 a month. Somebody's paying for that.
Yeah.
So instead of it being $1,200, it needs to be $1,240 a month. It's still ridiculous. It's not a valid argument in my behalf. But that's, they want to make all these blanket statements, but not substantiate where are you getting your numbers from? What do the numbers actually work out to be? They just want to make blanket statements. And, we've done it. We've got our proponents' response to the city's study, and we just tear it apart in our response. I mean, you can go on Eureka Housing for All 2024 and take their 24 pages and read our 76 pages, and we just basically overlay it and redline and yellow line it and show you exactly where there's mistruths, misstatements, and the firm they hired to do that was an absolute waste of money.
Yeah.
It's a pretty bad deal for the taxpayers of Eureka. So
are they just hoping people don't look into it that deeply?
I think so.
I think that they're just, between looking at the voter turnout and just how people vote and don't really pay that close attention and just read like headlines and captions. They're just thinking like, oh, well, no one's really paying that close attention. So
we can make these statements. We can put some headlines out there. They're going to soundbite it. And, we'll move forward with it. And the other thing we see out there is we can't redo the RENA report at this point because the state won't allow it, and that's not true. They also say that only publicly built housing counts for the RENA numbers. That's not true. Every unit that gets built counts against the RENA numbers, whether it's a private developer or as long as it's in the district outline, it counts. There's just a lot of misstatements out there. Even one of the lawsuits we had was against the city attorney for telling them that they couldn't redo the numbers. She made a misstatement during a public meeting, and the judge didn't want to admonish her for it, but she knows she did it, and knows it wasn't true. So those things are just happening continuously. And that's part of why I'm involved is, I just want people to do their own research. Look at the facts, look where they came from, vet your facts and vote accordingly. And I think if you do that, you're going to see there's a better plan than what the city has proposed.
Well, you guys are getting a lot of pushback, not only from the city council, from the city manager, but the California Attorney General came out and sided against you guys.
Yeah, when was the last time he was in Humboldt County? Has he ever been here?
It's a good question.
Yeah, I can't find that he's ever been here.
Anything. Yeah, I don't think he's been.
I invite him to come on up and take a look around. Let's take a look at what he's talking about here, because
we'll sit down with him and have a meeting.
Absolutely.
But just name recognition alone, a lot of people that you would assume would know the numbers and would be paying attention are siding against you guys.
Like
the city manager, the city council.
Well, they have an agenda.
Attorney General.
They want to get this grant money. So, there's an agenda there.
Yeah. As far as the city goes, they want to get the grant. They pretty much said that in several.
And they're very much into the
excerpts.
15-minute city and, biking and, get rid of your car. I think that's a pretty small group of people, but they're very well organized. So,
well, and if they're in positions of power.
That's
all that matters.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you can appoint people and put people on committees and different commissions and things. It's a lot easier to make things happen.
And our city council is very green leaning, you could say. And so the idea that they would kind of push this at the expense of cars would just be a benefit for them.
Absolutely.
Well, and we have a challenge with most of the media as well. We send in press releases that never get printed.
Saying you have a challenge is putting it nicely.
Yeah, putting it nicely. And we know when we turn in ours, and we know when they turn in their press release makes the press, and ours does not ever. So we have to be a little bit more creative. So and
make sure that they're not misquoting or representing us either, because that's happened to me in the past, not so much recently, but they've done that to me before.
Do you think a lot of that, the pushback, maybe even just from the media, comes from the ties to Arkley and Security National? Do you think that branding is working against you guys?
I'm sure
it does.
Definitely plays a role. Yeah, because there's going to always be people that are against Arkley no matter what, so that's not a surprise.
Yeah. But I would also point out, what would our city look like now if he had put, the millions and millions of dollars he put into our city, 10, 20 years ago. You just go through downtown and say, there's an Arkley project, there's an Arkley project, there's an Arkley project. So, haters will always hate, but at the end of the day, we have a nicer environment than what we would have had.
Yeah, if anybody else can say they've done as much as he has done for our local community, then by all means, let me know. I haven't seen it yet, though, because, like you said, project, you can just go down the road and see all the things that he's done to make Eureka nicer. So, yes, there's pros and cons, but there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah, a lot of what I've heard from ground level is people are afraid that this is just a pet peeve of Arkley's and that he's kind of doing this to spite the city, and that's why he's trying to tie up all these parking lots and lawsuits. It's not necessarily out of a care for the housing, but he doesn't want to lose parking for Security National. And this is kind of a way to stick it to the city.
Well, I find that interesting because we've taken the parking lot that they're talking about out of the initiative.
Yeah.
So, that's off the table. He's got a lot of, he has a vested interest. He's still got the balloon track to develop. He's got a lot of property downtown. He's got a huge vested interest in this area succeeding. So, I believe that he believes that, and I haven't had this conversation with him, but I believe that he believes what he is doing is the best long-term outcome for Eureka. And I believe in that vision as well. I think Michelle does as well, that, we need to find a way to keep the downtown business community vital and relevant and thriving. Taking up all the parking isn't the path. So,
yeah, none of that would be in our best interests as business owners. I mean, that's just a fact. I mean, we all need housing. We all know that we need housing. I don't think anyone's against that, but we all, also need the parking. It's just part of the package. Like, we have to have both. We can't have one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
How did the Jacobs campus come into play for that?
We sat down and looked at every available spot to build, and that was clearly by far the crown jewel of how we can get, the most out of our housing numbers in the city. I mean, it was
Meet Rena.
There was the best option. There's some other nice lots around, but they weren't going to provide the numbers that Jacobs did. And then you look at its location. They're already doing that Sunset Heights project. The city's already said this is a win-win. I think there's 220 units going in over there. It's near shopping, services, probably bus routes, Winco. It's an excellent spot, and this is the same distance away from all of those amenities. With even a bigger footprint, and possibly 400 to 600 units can go up there. So it was obviously the best option. It's tough for a developer to come in and say, "Hey, am I going to get this rezoned? If I lock this up, will I even be able to build on it?" So to us, the first natural step is let's take that out of the equation. Let's provide the zoning ahead of time to make this more attractive to developers to come in. If it's already zoned correctly, you're going to have a lot more, people interested in it. And lo and behold, there's already people interested in it. So, it's obvious to us that, this is the direction to go.
But the zoning on it has not currently changed.
No. I don't think it's far-fetched to say that even without the initiative, a developer could get this done. But getting it done ahead of time definitely helps. So, I think, I have to think that this developer is thinking they're going to get it changed either way. And if they don't have to go out and spend, $100,000, $200,000, $300,000 getting this zoning changed, and I don't know exactly what it would cost, but I can guarantee it's going to be at least $75,000, that's something that, they can pay a little bit more for the property then and go in and develop this. So, I think it's a win-win for everybody. I don't know what the exact plans are up there, but even if just half of it gets developed and, the other half is multi-use or, different types of uses, that's still a huge win for the RENA numbers. So
there seems to be some concern with how the property became available, though, correct? That there's this LLC that's formed in December, does a land swap with Eureka City Schools, pays $5.5 million on top of that. And so now it's a private developer that owns it, not the city. It's not a city lot.
Mm-hmm.
And the hope is that it will eventually get rezoned, and then maybe that developer will do something with it if the initiative passes.
Yeah. And to me, that's the best situation. You're not going to have to pay prevailing wage. You can come in there and probably do those units for $200,000 or $300,000 a unit instead of $700,000 or $800,000 a unit. Those numbers start to work. The numbers we're proposing now, they're never going to work. Not for the next 20 or 30 years anyway. And then, there's the question of what happens down the road with those properties once these contracts are up 50 years down the road. That's not transparent. Nobody knows what's happening there with those currently city-owned properties, on whether they transfer or, start creating tax revenue, or, do they go to the tribes? I don't know. I just don't know.
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. So to me, I'm always in favor of, the government shouldn't do what private industry can do. Let private industry dollars develop those lots, and take the public dollars out of that equation. And to me, that's a win-win. It's still happening across town. Will Adams is doing it all the time. I mean, he's building those projects, and he's got a formula that works for him, obviously. And I think they're great projects. They're sexy. They look great.
Nice. Yeah.
But I also believe that we need the parking across the street from them, or else it's going to add to the problem, not create a benefit for downtown. So and maybe the answer is we give up a parking lot or two and build a parking structure. we just need to figure the numbers out. But I also think that this needs to go to the voters. This needs to be the people that live in the town need to decide. You start looking at the people who are against us, and I don't know, there was 80 people or 100 people on this one list, and I could identify maybe a quarter of them actually lived in Eureka. So,
yeah.
It's tough for me to look at that list and say, you don't live here. I live here. I work here. I'm here every day in downtown. I live inside the city limits. I feel like this is, my town.
Right.
I want to see it thrive, and to have somebody who doesn't live here tell me how it should go, that's pretty tough.
Would a private developer be incentivized in the same way to do low-income housing, though, like the city would?
I think they can be. I think there's a lot of different ways they can go out there. You look at what Danco's done on the public front with tax credits and, building, veterans housing units. You just have to be smart enough to do it. There's definitely programs out there, and you put the right people on the project and it's going to get done. And if you can do it without the government dollars, even better.
Yeah, but private developers are also incentivized to try to maximize profits.
Absolutely. So, the RENA numbers do need, a certain amount of low-income housing, super low-income housing. And there are grant programs out there. Once again, we're back to the public dollar. But, if it offsets it enough, then, the private developer will utilize it. So
would they have access to the same amount of grant funding that the city would?
I have no idea.
That's a good question. Yeah. I'm not totally sure on that. But I know that there's a lot of state and federal grants that they can reach. So
the grant world is
how many.
A very complicated maze. So I can't say that I don't even know if there's a way to measure how many grant dollars are available in different veins. I know that it's a bit like looking for a needle in a haystack. And when you find that needle, you run with it. But, that'd probably be a pretty good segment to have somebody just on grant writing come in here and we'd all learn something.
Yeah, no kidding.
Hash it out for a few hours.
That'd be exciting.
Yeah.
So under the current structure, there wouldn't necessarily be a directive that they have to build any housing on the lot. The lot could theoretically sit if your initiative goes through. It's obviously owned by a private developer. We could be in the same spot where no housing's built and the parking lots are maintained and nothing changes. It's the same status quo.
True. We're in that spot now with the public stuff. They don't have the funding. So, are we in a different spot? I don't know. So,
what do you guys make of the fact that LLC was put together so quickly? I mean, the initiative already had the Jacobs campus earmarked out, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And then in December, this deal unfolds.
I would have to think that, that maybe the LLC was formed very quickly, depending on who the partners wanted to be. But I don't think that deal was probably formed very quickly, would be my guess. That doesn't happen that often. So my guess is probably there was a group of investors, some were in, some were out. They're trying to figure out who was going to be part of this LLC and who wanted in on this deal. They're probably running numbers. And at the last hour, they said, all right, this is the final people who are involved. Let's form this LLC. And it's pretty easy to do. It's not that uncommon.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's not uncommon at all. They make it seem like this is a rarity or something, but it happens quite a bit.
Yeah. I work in the finance world and we form LLCs all the time. It's just, what structure works, what structure doesn't, who wants to be part of this deal, who doesn't want to be part of that one. Let's form another LLC. We'll have an LLC on top of an LLC. To me, that's not that uncommon. I think maybe to some people who don't deal with it, maybe it seems uncommon. I'm sure they're upset on the lack of transparency. But then again, if you're out there buying a home and you make an offer on it, your realtor can't tell anybody who's making the offer what the offer is or who it is. It's not so different than what a normal real estate deal is. I don't blame whoever's behind this for not wanting to step up and basically step in the mud at this point.
Right.
I don't blame them for probably getting all of their thoughts and ideas, getting everybody's opinions together. And I'm sure when the time is right, they'll probably announce what their thoughts and plans are and move forward. But I don't blame them a bit for staying out of the limelight at this point. So,
if you were to speculate, do you think Arkley is one of those investors?
He says he's not.
I don't think so. Yeah.
Has he said that he's not?
Mm-hmm. Several times.
Yeah.
So he says he has absolutely nothing to do with it. So,
I mean, it wouldn't be a far stretch considering the amount of money he's put into your guys' group, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And the amount of funding that he does have access to.
Right.
And it would be understandable that he would want to maintain some sense of anonymity where his name is already so attached to everything.
Right. I think it would be the other way. I think that even if he wanted to do this project, he would avoid being part of it just so it would have its own merit. So,
But it would benefit his plan if he were somehow able to implement this aspect of it.
it would, but I think it would further benefit his plan if somebody else did it. So, I mean, that's the best outcome. You know, we get the housing, he can go do his projects and, you know, still have viability of those projects. But, you know, I've talked to the attorney. Attorney says he's not part of it. So, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know who is.
I don't know any.
He says that Rob is absolutely not part of it. So I'm going to believe the attorney and believe Rob on this one and say that he's not part of it. So
That's all I know.
Does the city, where do they stand now that that deal has gone through? So private developer has Jacobs campus. Do they seem more willing to change course and go this direction? Or they're going to wait and see what happens?
I think they're in a wait and see mode. Looking at the last city council meeting, you know, they kind of came up with 3 proposals. One is to rezone the property ahead of time, with, you know, put their caveats on it, which I think they said would cost about $75,000 for them to do it. The other is to do nothing. And the third one is to wait and see. And I think the third one, wait and see, was kind of the predominant,
That's what I gathered.
thought process between most of the people. I think Katie really wants to push forward something for her ward. You know, I'd hate to see the city go spend $75,000 on something that's probably going to happen in March or November anyway. So I just think it'd be a waste of money.
Are you guys feeling pretty good about your chances in November?
We do. And we got a lot of support. And, you know, going back to the, you know, the beginning of this of, you know, decided on whether this is something I wanted to get involved with. You know, there obviously, you know, you look at it and go, this is, you know, I'm in a business where, you know, I remain pretty neutral on most things publicly, even whether, you know, what my feelings are on it. A lot of times people don't know, but, looking at this and, you know, the detriment of what it could have done to, you know, any of my businesses was definitely a factor. And at the end of the day, I decided this was something that was important enough to me and, you know, that people needed to know the facts on it, that I was going to move forward with it. And I can tell you that I have had nobody, you know, other than just ask questions. Nobody's been horrific. I've never lost a client over this. You know, I would say that it's actually the opposite, where I've got a lot of support, a lot of emails, a lot of thank yous for doing this. I might even got a client or two out of it. So, wasn't my intention in the beginning, but I would say that overall the experience has been pretty positive. So I feel pretty good about it. And, you know, you look at the numbers, you know, on what we did. We hired FMG to do a study before we got involved. And that was really kind of one of the biggest things that got me involved with it. I actually brought the study with me. FM3 actually is the name of the research company that we did. And, you know, you look at, you know, on the downtown plans the city is proposing, when we did our study on it, in which, you know, we've got all the data on, and I think it's pretty solid data, 23% were in support of the project and 21% were somewhat supportive of what the city wanted to do. But when we talked to people originally, some people, 15% were somewhat opposed, but 37% were strongly opposed. So, you know, by the time you look at this, it was 52 against and 43 for. So it was a pretty wide gap on people who don't like the current plan that the city has proposed. And so, you know, before we even came up with our plan, that was the research. So then once we started running the numbers and looking at the you know, how can we fix this? We didn't want to just come and say, you can't do this. We wanted to come with an answer on, you know, what's a better plan? How do we get everything we need? How do we get the housing, retain the parking? You know, came with our plan. I think the numbers really sway our way pretty strongly. So I feel pretty good that, you know, the people of Eureka are going to vote the right way on this.
Yeah, I feel like once they like hear the facts and they see the studies and they know like all the information, they're like, oh, I didn't realize this, you know? And so then they're like, well, that makes sense.
Yeah. Once we presented our case, the numbers swung to 37% against and 61% for. So it even widened it. You know, once people start getting the facts and looking at, all right, what the city had was one way, and here's another way that's better, the margin widens, terrifically for our benefit.
Yeah.
So
it has to feel like an uphill battle, though, in some sense.
Absolutely.
Oh, totally.
You feel like the facts are on your side, and yet the media is coming against you guys. Local media, pretty strongly against.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is that a wake up call?
No.
No, this has been my experience for the last 6 years, so I'm not.
We were
a stranger
fully
to
aware
this.
walking into it that
Yeah.
we were, running uphill. So,
Which is sad that that's where we're at in this day and age. You can't just have a pragmatic conversation and actually detail the facts.
Yeah, that's probably one of my most frustrating things and you definitely can't have that on social media.
or a city council meeting.
Yeah.
Which you would think that would be the place where open conversation is welcomed, is a city council.
Well, you get to comment. There's no conversation, but your comments are falling on deaf ears. So,
I mean, it does get on public record, but even if you do have a actual conversation with any of them, it still falls on deaf ears because they just kind of say,
They already have their mind made up.
Yeah,
Right.
it's...
Or, I've had, one city council member tell me, I'm fully with you, but I just, don't want to upset the tea cart,
Yeah, I've
It's like
been
the
told
tea
the
cart?
same thing.
Well, I mean, they don't want to go against.
They don't want to go against the grain.
Yeah. So, to me, that's upsetting. So stand up for what you believe in, or, step aside and let somebody else do it.
Well, there are just ideological pitfalls that you can fall into with any base.
Mm-hmm.
And going against that or provoking questions is frowned upon in a lot of ways.
That's why we elect them. Stand up for what is best for your district. So, if you can't
At
push
the
back
end
a
of the
little
day,
bit,
they're
then
supposed to represent us. So, they're supposed to listen to what our voice, and whatever that voice is, they should be, acknowledging us instead of shushing us and telling us that, we got you. And they got something completely different planned and going on.
Mm-hmm.
And not intentionally misleading the public. That report on parking usage from 2021, that's alarming because I was under the impression, and the way that it was presented was this was a fairly recent study that they did, and you would assume that it would actually be when peak usage is in fact peak usage,
Right.
not in COVID when people are locked in their house and not going anywhere.
Well, you can do any study you want and make it look any way you want. I mean, pick the time, pick the data you want to use. It is what it is. But I mean, go down there and try and park, That's all I say. Go down there and try and park.
That's what was really eye-opening too, was when that study came out, a lot of the business owners that, have storefronts were raising alarm like, whoa, wait, no. Like, this is just like this because no one's open right now. No one's going out. But trust me, our parking lots are full most of the time. And they'll give times and, depending on the type of business. And so that's when it was like, okay, well, that there's something else going on here.
Well, and define peak time.
Yeah. Every business has a different peak
Is that
time,
noon?
right?
That's a
Is
good
that
point.
5:30 p.m.?
I mean, if it's a restaurant, it's one thing. If it's, a CPA, it's another. If you're a
Right.
hairdresser, I mean.
Well,
Yeah, Los Bagels has a different time
Right.
than AA.
Well, and exactly. I mean, and you look at this, you look at the businesses that are down there, and, if all this does go through and, we lose all the parking down there will be a few businesses that benefit greatly from that. I would argue to say that there's going to be many more who either fold or are hurt by it tremendously. And so then you got to decide as a community, do you want to re-resurrect the whole town and redirect it? And, mom and pops that have been in business 60, 70, 80 years are going to go away and be, refilled by something that meets the new need. I don't think that's a great idea. In my own opinion, the reason we live here is it is what it is. The reason I live here is it is what it was. I'd like to see more of that, less of what we currently have. And I think there's answers out there. A lot of it surrounding mental health and housing. And that's why we're suggesting what we're, proposing at this point is, let's build more housing than what they need. And here's an option that we can build 3 times what you're currently suggesting and maintain the parking and maintain the vitality of Old Town for tourists, business, retail, and so on. So we just think there's a better plan. And here it is. So.
Well, it's better to come with a solution like that than just point out the problem and say, we can't
Right.
do this because of X, Y, and Z.
Mm-hmm.
Now you've presented something where people can at least look at it and say, okay, is this feasible? Is this an alternative that we could actually go down?
Mm-hmm. And we have data that supports all of it. And, I really, really encourage people to go on the Eureka Housing for All 2024 site and look at that study that the city did, and then look at the proponents' rebuttal to it. And, you'll see where all the inaccuracies are. We have yellow lined them, and then we have explained where our data came from to a pinpoint, and where theirs did not come from, or where it might have come from that may not be accurate. And I think you'll see very, very quickly how much more accurate our numbers are than theirs. So I think it's really hard to refute the numbers when you start looking at them.
I would imagine you guys have a lot of the support from local businesses down in Old Town.
Oh yeah, we've got about 60 on board right now.
60 out of how many are down there?
I'm not totally sure.
I think that's a hard number to come up with, but probably 100.
I was going to say 100 and something.
130, 150, somewhere around there.
So split, maybe the majority are with you guys.
But I would say that the ones that we have are the ones that are open 9 to 5, or 9 to midnight, maybe. There's a lot of like little hidden businesses down there.
Yeah.
That,
they're only open like 5 or 6 hours.
Or it's hidden offices and that type of stuff. So I would say we have the bulk of the retail. So.
Yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what happens in November then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I think that just, letting the voters decide is going to be where it's at. I mean, they need to know the information. It's unfortunate that, the city council puts out so much information against us instead of just letting the information be and then letting the voters decide on what that is. Mm-hmm. Because ultimately, like we were said in the beginning, this is about the future. So what's going to happen in 10 and 20 years from now, we got to think about not tomorrow, but what's going to happen down the road. Because once it's gone, it's gone. And so I feel like having the voters decide and having the majority of Eureka decide gives, them some input. I mean, it's their city. They should be able to have a say in what happens. Not a select few with a specific agenda.
Well, I think that's incredibly important. It's not you guys out here trying to ramrod this down people's throats. Whether they agree with you or don't, you guys are giving them the opportunity to cast their ballot for it or against it.
Right.
Yep.
You're putting the power back to the people.
Exactly.
And I think that's something everyone can be for.
And that's really what started this. We were just tired of not being heard as a group that I think does a lot of productive good for the community. And you look at those, the 60 we have on board, and also the other supporters that maybe aren't part of CBE simply or our initiative because they don't live in town or have a business inside the city limits, but our support base is broad. And these people, maybe they work in Arcata and live in Cutton, somebody like that. But they're still utilizing the services downtown on a daily basis, whether it's going to the AA or, 511 or Green Lily or any of these other places. So, CPAs, the banks, the brokerage firms. Once these guys are displaced, what's going to happen? Where are all those businesses going to go if they can't keep the facilities that they need, i.e. parking or access to their business? If I can't have my clients park close enough to come in and sign stuff, I have to move. Where do I go? Do I go to Henderson Center? Do I go out Harrison? I go somewhere, where they can park. Unfortunately, it's just not going to be downtown. And then you look at, the dynamic of then who's coming downtown. Is it going to be the demographic of a client who's going to eat at the restaurants we have down there? Or are you going to have to change those restaurants? Are they going to have to downscale? It starts a ball in motion that's scary to think about. And it could devastate a lot of the family-owned businesses. At that point, do they just move out of state? I mean, that tends to be the trend. Do we lose the people who are paying the taxes, and then we only have the people who have a very small tax base or contributes, a very small amount? It really can change the dynamic quickly. And it's worrisome.
Yet again, I don't think the importance for parking can be understated. That is an important aspect of having a downtown, is you need to have places where people can park. And that's what I don't understand, why the city wouldn't just acknowledge that and formulate some plan to provide parking, either on-site parking or maybe turn one of those parking lots into a parking structure. Right. Just do something.
My opinion is they don't care what it looks like in 10 years. They care about what they can do during their term.
Well, a parking lot doesn't sell the same way as
Housing
let's
right
build some
now.
low-income housing.
Is the key word right now. So that's
and climate-friendly housing seems to be the buzzword.
yes.
That by not having parking and trying to eliminate cars through that avenue, we're making this climate-friendly.
Right.
Well, that started a long time ago. Really, the start of that was changing H&I from 3 to 2 lanes. That was really the first thing. So, once that passed through, then it's been the glide path has been predictable since then. So
Yeah, they tried to do a one-way around the armory there for a minute, and they did some shady study with that too. They did a traffic study when the schools were closed.
Yeah, they're really good at doing studies when
when nobody's actually utilizing that space.
Yeah.
Convenient.
Well, I was pretty upset about that one because my ex-wife lives in Cutton and I live in the middle of town, and our kids went to Eureka High and Washington, and Cutton School. So I had to go through there 3-4 times a day. That was going to add about 20-30 minutes to my day.
Well, just retarded. They acknowledged that it was going to negatively impact traffic.
Yeah.
And they just said, we don't care.
They don't care.
Once again, they went around Sequa. So
did they really on that one?
They tried to,
Ooh.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big
I'm starting to sense
battle.
a trend.
Yeah.
So if we can figure out a way not to have Sequa impact it, and the next thing you're going to see is they're going to do it on the bike paths through all the greenways. It's already in the proposals to, get around Sequa so we can put, a aluminum ramp through a salmon habitat and not have to, account for that. So,
well, I've heard people push to reduce 101 coming into town to 2 lanes through Old Town because people don't like having to cross 3 lanes of traffic. They don't feel comfortable doing that. So we need to reduce that to a 2-lane road. Well,
then what happens is there's never a break on a 2-lane road. And that's going to be the same thing that happens on H&I. You're going to try and cross down around 12th through 16th Street, try and get across H&I when there's 2 lanes, when it's just solid traffic. You're going to be sitting there a while. Right now with 3 lanes, there's breaks here and there. You can get across. It's going to get worse.
It's going to be very congested. Yeah. I'm not too familiar with what's going on. Are you talking about 5th Street?
It's 101 coming in from north end of town into Old Town.
Oh, okay.
They want to reduce that by the courthouse, by the jail there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not.
Which would be crazy.
Gridlock.
Oh, gosh.
Which is crazy.
Caltrans. Yeah. No. I know about the other side over on Broadway side of 101 that they've
wanted to reduce.
They're wanting to put like a median down the middle and to do a bunch of stuff to slow traffic, and I guess because of accidents and people getting hit.
Well, most of those people are crossing,
but we know that
in non-crosswalks.
No reason,
and they're just running out.
They're not crossing at a crosswalk, and they're not
lucky
paying attention.
not to kill a couple of people who ran.
I've come close a few times, and I'm not trying to hit anybody, and it's scary.
Yeah.
And when it's dark and they're wearing all dark clothing and they just dart out in front of you. I had a bike hit my car a couple of years ago, and I was like, okay, I'm not going that way anymore.
Most of those accidents are not in crosswalks.
No.
Interesting. Well, the decisions that have been made from a traffic standpoint are just interesting to look at. I mean, all the bulb outs that we now have throughout the city. Meanwhile, the roads are just falling apart. But don't look at that. We've got these fancy new bulb outs for people to use.
Santa Barbara's taken theirs out. They've been in there 10 years, and they think that it causes more accidents and saves people.
I've heard that. I've heard that there's actually no evidence that these are safer for pedestrians.
Yeah.
Zero impact.
Zero studies.
Yeah, they're not.
No studies have been done yet.
Yeah.
Which is crazy to implement that at scale without having that data in place.
How do you not have studies? I just don't understand.
Well, how much money have they already dumped
millions,
into that project?
Probably billions.
1.4, I think, was the number I heard. So,
billion?
Million.
Okay.
Oh, here?
Yeah.
Or
just
all over?
in the city of Eureka.
Okay.
So
a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
Yeah, and they're doing them all over the state.
Yep.
Yeah.
It feels like there is a lot of people jumping before they're looking. And so we're making these decisions based on a whim because it feels good or it sounds good, and we're not actually looking at the impact or
give me the money
for monetary
Yeah.
reasons.
Give me the money. I want to do something while I'm here. So that's the sense I get. I want to accomplish as much as I can and put my stamp on it while I'm here. If I'm here 4 years, 8 years, 6 years, whatever it is.
You can clean up our mess later.
Yeah, it's not going to be 10. So
Yeah.
I mean, there's very few people that are there now that were there 10 years ago.
I'm just wondering how we're going to maintain all the bulb outs. I mean, here locally, at least. You know,
We're not
some
gonna.
of those chunks,
Yeah, that poor
some of
street
those are
sweeper
missing
guy.
some big chunks of concrete already, and it's like these are brand new.
I've seen 2 Toyota pickups upside down from hitting those.
Yeah.
So how can that be safer?
I don't know. I've seen cars just like locked up on the middle.
Yeah, what happens when the lawsuits start coming down?
Yeah. Well, and you go down and talk to any of the tire shops, and they think this is the best thing that ever happened.
Oh yeah, they're making a lot of money on alignments and tires right now.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's not comforting when you put all that into context.
Yeah. So
You look at the situation and think, okay, who's actually steering the ship here?
yeah.
Because it feels like we're sinking a little bit.
yeah, the priorities of what I think we should be spending our tax dollars on are. It doesn't feel like that's what the majority of the people want. It feels like it's something else going on.
Well, and what's going to even benefit a majority of people? Feels like we're focused on a very small minority, if it benefits anyone at all in the case of those
Right.
bulb outs.
Well, and I think a lot of this is let's see what grant money we can get. You know, they're throwing all these proposals out there to get these grants. Oh, great, we got this one. Oh, great, we got that one. Let's take that. You know, the ones that I worry about more than the bulb outs are the ones that are partially funded. You know, we get $28 million grant for a $63 million project. We still got to come up with $30 million, $35 million. Where's that going to come from? Maybe we shouldn't take that one grant. Maybe we should think this through a little bit. That's what worries me.
And isn't the city's general plan in the negative right now?
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I've got, pension obligations. It's just, it goes on and on and on.
Well, I've heard that staffing for the sheriff's office is a point of contention right now. They're
I
trying to get
think
money.
the county just gave some money for that the last meeting, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, for community service officers.
Oh yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, it's
Yeah.
tough, to get, I feel sorry
We're
for the
losing
officers.
firefighters,
Yeah.
and police officers, but we got bulb outs.
So yeah.
Yeah, something tells me that's not going to stop a lot of crime.
No.
No.
So.
Well, thank you guys for coming on and
Yeah.
chatting about this.
Oh, thanks for
It was
having us.
interesting
Thank you
to
for
hear your
having us.
perspective. Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. And as we get closer to November, we'd love to come back if you'd have
Yeah,
us.
absolutely.
So yeah.
Do you guys want to plug where people can find you, where they can find the initiative, all
Yeah.
your work?
Eureka Housing for All 2024.com or .org.
.org. Yeah.
.org. You can find all the information. There's also Citizens for Better Eureka.org. All the information's on there. There's a really good spot on the Eureka Housing for All 2024 where you can go in and see all of the documents that have been filed for the city. You can download the proponents' rebuttal to the city's report. That's the best read I think you can take out there. But read it all. Read the city's, read ours, see where you land at the end. I think I know where you're going to land, and I think you're going to be shocked when you start reading this stuff. So, use your brain. Don't look at sound bites, and do your own research.
Yes, maybe dial back the local news consumption and
Yeah.
form your own opinion, and then go to the local news.
Right. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because it seems like they take out snippets and quotes only certain individuals.
Got to get clicks.
Yeah.
Got to get clicks.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for doing this. This was
Thanks.
a lot of
Thank
fun.
you.
Really appreciate it.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.